On this week's Cosmic Cantina, we put on our surgical mask, wash our hands for at least 20 seconds, and talk about viruses. The coronavirus is big news right now, but can you trust every piece of info you hear about? Then, Josh goes into a computer virus that could potentially be more devastating than any biological threat. I'm your host, Melissa Tittle, and every week I go to my favorite bar, Cosmic Cantina, and kick back with my co-hosts, Josh Golembeski and Matt O'Connor. We talk about aliens, Bigfoot, ghosts, ancient cultures, and anything from the unseen world that needs a little illumination. Welcome to this week's Cosmic Cantina. I'm your host, Melissa Tittle, and tonight we are drinking something called Space. It's a craft cider, blood orange craft cider.
It's good stuff. Delicious. It's unfiltered from California.
It is. It's so cloudy and tangy.
I thought my journey into gluten-free alcohol was going to be terrible, but I'm finding many good things. There's many good options out there. There's hope for you people out there who have to be gluten-free like me.
There you go. Let's hope for the world.
Nice.
Well, is there, though?
I don't know.
After this one, I don't know.
Let's talk about it, guys.
All right, so we're going to talk about the coronavirus because it's all over the place. And we have a couple opinions about it. Maybe it's not so much paranormal, this podcast, but it definitely gets into some weird shit. So I just want to bring up, I'm sure a bunch of you have been reading the articles about the Chinese doctor that tried to save lives by posting a warning to people way ahead of time that there was a SARS-like virus that was active. And of course, he got silenced. And then I think 3 weeks later, there was the massive outbreak happened. And now he has the virus.
He died, right?
Yeah, he has died. And, I think there's a lot of government conspiracies going on around this, what's happening in China, and of course, how it was handled. But I think this is real. Like, he really tried to warn people of this, and of course the Chinese government handled it completely different. You know what else is really weird is that the president of China has disappeared the last 2 days. He's completely it's a bit of a dictatorship, so he's everywhere. He's on every publication all the time, and now he's just nowhere. I don't think it's because he's avoiding getting sick. I'm sure he doesn't want to get sick. I think he's somehow setting up a blame for someone else. But I don't know. It's very suspicious.
Wait. So the president is missing.
He's missing.
And you inferred that he's missing because he wants to blame it on someone else?
Well, that's some of the speculation. But basically, think of it this way. They're in the middle of a massive crisis right now.
Yeah.
And he is not addressing his people. He's just completely disappeared.
See, that's what I thought when I first heard this, was that he's just ducked into a bunker somewhere and said, "Fuck this! I'm just going to wait for this to blow over."
But you still address your people.
Yeah,
that's
a weird.
From the bunker. Maybe. Yeah.
Right. Why would you just disappear completely?
Or at least talk to the media. Like, you can pick up the phone. You're not going to get the virus from the phone.
If ISIS can make videos from caves, this guy can make it.
You're right.
Yeah.
An announcement.
I don't know where I was getting with that.
Announcement from a bunker.
Right.
Yeah.
I am not getting the virus, but I'm in a bunker. Yeah. So it's just strange. It's just strange. Like, what's really happening, right?
Yeah.
And I think, Matt, you were kind of looking into all the government conspiracies because there was things about how Russia's blaming United States.
Oh man, there's so many things right now
for the coronavirus.
I kind of went down a rabbit hole because I was like, "Ooh, what's going on?
Ooh, take me down a conspiracy rabbit hole.
Blogs. Let's do this." And then I came across something and I was like, "Hang on, this is a little bit too batshit insane." And then I sort of dug into that a little bit. Yeah, we'll get into that. Batshit is pretty close to it. The problem where this arises is that the Chinese government is being so opaque about it. Like, there's no transparency on this at all. And I think a lot of people are like, well, they're giving us some numbers about how many are infected and all this, but
could those be right?
Is that real? Are they just kind of trying to appear as though they're on top of this? Because another thing that came out...
China wouldn't lie about the numbers.
Surely.
They've never done anything like that.
Governments have never lied in the past. What are you talking about?
It's all fine.
So they even did something like the Chinese government put out a photo of this building, and they said, "Look, we're so on top of this. We erected this hospital in 16 hours, and it's all ready to go, and we're on top of this." And people did a simple image search, and it was apparently It was all propaganda. It was just some apartment building that was like 600 miles away. Some 200
Wait,
miles away.
really?
Yeah.
That's all over the mainstream news that they're building a hospital in 48 hours. And only China can do this.
Yeah.
It's all BS.
It was all BS.
That's real BS, not conspiracy on like some nutbag out there on the internet.
Right.
Wow.
And so when you think about that, you think about, like, of course people are going to jump to conclusions on things because who knows what's real.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I don't trust anything they say now.
But the origins of this thing is still, pretty up for debate, but there's a lot of conspiracy online about where it came from and who caused it, and that's where I started going down the rabbit hole of like where this is coming from. So I started going down this rabbit hole of like, it came out of this Canadian biolab where there was these two Chinese doctors who were spying, and they were smuggling out viruses from this thing.
From Canada?
From Canada, and that's where it originally
Canada,
came
sexy.
from. Yeah.
There's no one's enemy, just to be clear, Canada.
Yeah.
They're in the
so
hot
nice.
seat now.
Well, so I mean, this story came from it was a well, I'll just read this quote. So Eric Morissette, a spokesman for the Public Health Agency of Canada, said, "This is misinformation. There is no factual basis for claims being made on social media about this. The false claim appears to have originated from a Texas money manager's Twitter account. On January 25th, Kyle Bass tweeted, husband and wife Chinese spy team were recently removed from the Level 4 infectious disease facility in Canada for sending pathogens to the Wuhan facility. The husband specialized in coronavirus research." So Bass included this link to a CBC story, which is like a news channel in Canada, from July. And it had, so, and this is how these things spread. Like, So apparently if you clicked on this thing, there's zero evidence to support any of his claims that he was making in his tweet.
People just read headlines, though.
Yeah, so basically the real story was...
it sounds good.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, holy shit, spy things happening. I
would share that before, verifying it.
Right, yeah, exactly. Like, holy shit, it's happening. So it seems there was possibly some spying going on, and that was kind of that was where people were going like, oh my God, but there was no sending of viruses. They didn't get kicked out for sending coronavirus or anything. So the real story was there was this doctor there who was, I think she was traveling, giving talks through collaboration with the WHO, the World Health Organization. And she was kind of kicked out of this lab, or escorted out, due to some, what they're calling a policy breach. But the story never mentions anything about anything sent to Wuhan, any pathogens going out of there. It was all just completely...
This is true. This is true.
This is the true stuff, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so there was never any mention of that. But this is it's funny that this story about this Chinese doctor getting kind of escorted off the premises, all of a sudden people jumped to the conclusions of that she was sending pathogens across to China, to the Wuhan facility.
Wow.
And people just started connecting these wild dots. And it was even the tweet was even retweeted by Republican congressmen and all sorts of stuff, and they were like, oh my God, come on guys, at least do a little fact checking before you do this.
Wow.
Spread like a virus.
A Republican congressman sent this out?
Yeah. I think there was a couple of them actually. And
that's not that I could go down a whole other path with that, because that's very strange. Why would you post that?
Yeah, was it just sheer stupidity and not researching what it was, or was it an agenda of some sort?
Yeah. So, I mean, there are obviously world governments do kind of collaborate on these things. And, I guess there is possibility that there could be nefarious stuff being researched as well. But, so they said there was actually a collaboration between the Winnipeg lab, where they did send two viruses, some Ebola and some Henipa. I don't know what that is, but I guess it's a virus. To Beijing in March 31st, but nothing to do with coronavirus again. And and the Public Health Agency of Canada said it was all above board. It was all part of their, collaboration and all that sort of stuff. There was nothing going on there at all. So that was kind of the big one that I've heard a bunch of people say, oh my God, they smuggled it out of this lab in Canada and that's where it came from.
Right.
But there's just no substance to the story whatsoever.
Wow.
Right.
And so, yeah.
What about Russia's claim that it was the United States?
Yeah, I mean, obviously they're going to be starting start this. I find these things there's been a whole bunch of stuff that came through. there was all this like misinfo coming through, like false claims about like all his, natural health blogs and stuff saying like, oh, just put, it's all vitamin C will help, or just smoking marijuana will cure the virus, or putting potatoes in your socks, or whatever it is,
Potatoes in your sauce?
That was a thing actually that came out before. It's actually a sad story. A little boy died of some flu because some naturopath told him to put potatoes in his socks to help him.
Wow, well, that's like ludicrous. I support natural remedies and medicine.
Is that in China
that's just
or here?
No, that was here. So it had nothing to do with it. I'm just saying it was like these bullshit claims.
Nobody
that came
put
out.
potatoes in your socks. Okay,
Yeah, that's not-
anybody listening, don't do it.
The other, like, kind of the big, I'll say it's a hoax because there's just no substance behind it. Any of these things that this virus is like a man-made bioweapon kind of thing.
Oh, come on. It'd be so much stronger if it was. But go on before I rip it apart.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too. It's like, it's not overly viral. Like, people are saying like, oh my God, it has this huge contagion. It's called a RO measurement of some kind, and it's basically a number given to a pathogen that describes how virulent it is, like how many people it can affect.
Oh, I've heard that. Yeah. I don't remember off the top of my head. But I know what you're
So
talking about.
it's between like 1.5 and 3 is the number of how infectious. So between 1.5 people and 3 people is how many people you can hope
per
to.
100 kind of thing?
No, just how many people if you come into
If you
contact
have
with
it, how
them.
many you're going to give it to?
Yeah.
Okay.
Basically, yeah. But I mean, measles is like 18.
Oh, so it's not very contagious compared
It's not.
to other
It's
horrible infectious
relatively
diseases.
low. Yeah. So people like freaking out. Oh my God, it's so high. Again, it was just like people like running with the ball and just being like, and then it started spreading
Like a virus.
like a virus. Yeah, that's what a lot of these people are drawing. Like this, the hoaxes are spreading faster than the virus itself.
Well, the only two things I think we should focus on is, one, are the numbers real, which seems like they might not be, and why is the president missing? Those are real conspiracies to me.
I wanted to research viruses, which is super lame, but I always have that like really lame but somewhat meaningful article that I bring up every
You
single
are
time.
super lame. I'll give you that. Yeah.
I like viruses, though. Outbreak's one of my favorite movies.
Woo!
Not really, but
So
that monkey.
I found this article called "Viruses Can Cause Global Pandemic, but Where Did the First Virus Come From?" So apparently, I don't even know this. I guess I just never thought about it. But they actually do not know the origin of the first virus ever. Like they've been searching for it. They've been trying to figure out how a virus even existed on Earth for the first time.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's unlike bacteria, viruses they're not living organisms. They can't reproduce on their own. Instead, they hijack cells to multiply and spread and cause disease. So they've been, covering this study for quite some time because there's been a lot of huge viruses that have come out that they've been trying to figure out how they started.
yeah.
So a couple theories. One theory suggests that the virus could have evolved from one complex free-living organism, such as a bacteria or cell. The study
So like
showed,
an evolutionary,
but it
supposedly we came from single-celled organisms. So.
Yeah. Showed that a protein called ARC that is important for memory in humans can form virus-like particles and transfer the RNA between the cells. So within your memory cells, you somehow make viruses, which is sort of interesting.
Okay.
That's one theory. So another hypothesis proposes that the virus exists first, even before the cells. In some prehistoric world, viruses might have existed as self-sustaining entities, a sort of ancient machine that could probably reproduce the genetic material that it needed. And so it produced cell-like entities, which would eventually be us. So the virus produced us.
Whoa,
So
that's interesting.
Isn't that crazy?
That is interesting. So, and I was just thinking, so a lot of the viruses we get, sort of, a whole lot of them, like even they're saying about the coronavirus and stuff, comes from eating other species. Like norovirus came from eating oysters, and they said this one's from eating bats, and like there was another one, the SARS or whatever, was from eating something else.
Pigs.
Anyway,
One of them was the swine flu.
the swine flu,
Pigs.
what was passed on from pigs,
Yeah.
but
I thought
yeah.
SARS was cats or something. Like it was like a feline.
Sounds feline.
SARS is also a coronavirus.
Yeah, no, it's the same. It's
Came from an animal.
Yeah, again, like,
HIV came from an animal. A lot
Yeah.
of these come from an animal.
But yeah, where did the first one come from?
Well, so the viruses are here before cells. What are we saying? Are we saying something even crazier?